Hello, and I am Reverend Ryan Pulley, and we are the Soul Evolution Collaborative. And this is Strip Down Sunday. And so today we're going to be talking about the ultimate fear buster. And so we're so thrilled to have you here with us to kind of have this time with you and to offer some inspiration, some spiritual upliftment in our own unique soul evolution collaborative kind of way. And so we've kind of stripped down your Sunday experience and offered you this kind of streamlined message that hopefully fits your need in this moment right now. And so we have this like strong desire and urge to bring this message of inspiration to the world at a time when I think we all agree that we need it the most. And so we are dedicated here at Soul Evolution Collaborative to personal transformation and communal evolution. And so before we get started talking about the ultimate fear buster, I wanted just to let you know that everything you'd want to know about Soul Evolution Collaborative, you can find at our website. And I'm going to drop that in the chat right now so that you can go and check that out whenever you would like to. You can go in there, poke around, see what events may interest you. We have so many different events that cater to so many different things within us, ways that we can connect to one another and to ourselves and to spirit. And so hop on over to our website and you can check out everything there. And so it's communities like ours who have missions like ours to bring this teaching to the world and to really create a new earth and new ways of being that benefit everyone. And so if you're in any way in alignment with this message and would like to support this mission, you can go to soulevolutioncollaborative.org and there's a donate button there. And that, once again, that is in the chat. So the ultimate fear buster. And so fear for many is a constant companion in our present day experience, really bears witness to that fact. And even as I speak now in this moment, many are facing the repercussions of war, of aggression, of unspeakable violations of human rights and safety. And this experience of fear is far beyond my own understanding. And even as I speak in this moment, right here, right now, in our own country, countless individuals are impacted by laws that attack the very core of what it means to live a life authentically. And this is just fear in its deepest sense. And so to not address these events, to not look at these events, would be to really invalidate and diminish the experiences of those and who this has an impact. And so we must acknowledge these experiences and stand in the gap for ourselves, for others, and the world, even in the face of fear. So what role does fear play in our own lives? What can we do in the face of this fear? And honestly, what are we called to do? So let me step back just for a moment, and because this topic of fear is this multifaceted thing that's experienced on many levels, and just really far too many levels for me to do justice to in this short amount of time that we have this morning. And so for my purpose today, I'd really like to talk about this existential feeling of fear. That fear that we may experience in the face of the unknown, that fear that keeps us stuck, that fear that may keep us small, or that may keep us tethered to something. Now, I know this fear, and I'm pretty sure that you know this too. And so I've spent a good portion of my life in either trying to living in this fear or trying to avoid this fear. And this has often kept me paralyzed at times, afraid to step out, afraid to see kind of what was beyond this like little safety zone that I had created for myself. And this has been in my experience, and I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone in this. And I think that we can all relate to this feeling of fear, that fear that calls us just to stay where we are, don't move, that fear that kind of warns us that what may happen if we dare to do something different, What may happen if we dare to think something different, and what may happen if we dare to be something different. And so, what do we do in the face of this kind of fear? Now, this may sound counterintuitive, and it may go against everything in our mind and our body and our spirit in the face of this kind of fear. But what if we leaned into it, leaned into the discomfort of it, the paralyzing nature of it, instead of trying to avoid it or ignore it or numb it? And I know this sounds sketchy at best, but let's just sit with that for a moment. What if we were willing, or even willing to be willing, to lean in to this experience of fear? And so often this conversation around fear, especially in spiritual communities or spiritual circles, and we're kind of talking about this intersection of spirituality and fear, or spirituality and our own experience of the world. Our conversation around fear often becomes really prescriptive. It is one, this conversation in spiritual communities is one that prescribes that spirituality and fear do not mix. Like, you can't have, if you have one, you can't have the other, or one negates the other. Now, this may sound controversial, but I believe that you can be spiritual and have fear. I'm going to repeat that. I believe that you can be spiritual and have fear. There it is. It's out there. I've said it. I don't think that spirituality negates fear, or our own spiritual work, or this own spiritual path, this path that we're on of integrating our experiences of life into a way that we can show up in the world. I don't think spirituality negates this fear, but instead, I think it transforms our relationship to fear. And so, as I've been contemplating and reading and just in all sorts of conversations this week about fear, this really powerful idea rose to the surface as a result. And one that I must admit, I resonated so much with that it nearly knocked me on my ass, because it is this is awareness that I just had not connected to. And so a dear friend said, just so powerfully, she said, "I think fear at its core is forgetting." Wow, let's just let that sink in for a moment. So if fear is truly a forgetting, then is remembering the answer? And if remembering is the answer, then remembering what? And so as I marinated on her words, for me, something really clicked. And so I began to scroll through my past thoughts and my past actions, and got really introspective, really reflective, kind of reflecting back on some experiences of my life. And these past thoughts and these past actions and past decisions that maybe I had made that didn't end up the way I thought they would. And then I began to kind of reflect on past thoughts and past actions of others. And so this common thread began to surface. And my goodness, it was forgetting. It was forgetting the truth. And so I think if we could look hard enough, we could see how this really plays out in our lives, how it plays out in the lives of those around us, and most definitely how this plays out in the world around us. This perpetual experience of forgetting, this experience of forgetting that just pervades all aspects of our life when we really pay attention to it. And so the times that I've looked at in my own life, that I've been the most fearful within my own being, within my own self, and you know what that fear feels like, just paralyzing. And so I can look back on those paralyzing moments, those moments where I was afraid to step out, those moments where I feared the unknown, the what would happen next, that space in between this experience and the next one. Fear of making mistakes, fear of not being enough, fear of lack and limitation, and fear of, you feel in the existential blank there. It is in those times that I recognized that I was experiencing a forgetting. I had forgotten my source. I had at times forgotten my value. I had forgotten my strengths. I had forgotten my essence. I had forgotten my connection. I had forgotten, and the list goes on and on. And so this forgetting really does influence our thoughts. It influences our actions and really how we show up in the world at any given time. Often creating scenarios that are, I can only speak for myself, not my best shining moments. So how can we begin to remember in the face of such metaphorical and existential amnesia? And so that really brings me back to my earlier statement when I said at the very beginning, in the face of fear, instead of avoiding, ignoring, shoving it in the closet, doing what we kind of have been conditioned to do with respect to fear, what if we decided to lean in, to invite it in, and dare I say, even befriend it? And we were able to interact with our fear really up close, really looking at it, really turning towards it, leaning into it. We become more and more aware of what is behind it. We can see it, that it's not truly at its face value, that there's something lurking behind, looking, kind of peeking its head over. And we can really see that when we lean into it. Those underlying thoughts and beliefs that nourish this fear, give this fear life. We begin to see it for what it really is. Not this imposing force that is something that's forced upon us, that we have to battle against or to avoid or to fight. We often use this language of fighting fear. But it's not this imposing force upon us, but instead it becomes, once we look at it, the culmination of our thoughts, the culmination of our beliefs, the culmination of our stories. In essence, the totality of our forgetting. And it's in this that we can begin to redirect that attention, redirect that nourishment in areas that instead support our forgetting, support our remembering. We can hold up everything that is supporting our fear, the things that are keeping us tethered and the fear of the unknown. We can hold up those things that are supporting that fear next to the truth, the source of our remembering. And so this begins to shed light into new ways of being, new ways of showing up, new ways that serve our highest good and really fuel our deepest passions. Because we feel it. Don't you feel that urge, that urge to step boldly into life, that urge to step beyond the things that have kept us tethered, that urge to step beyond the four walls of our closet sometimes. We feel it. To step out in those brave spaces, to step out in ways that stir joy and passion within us. And so using this leaning into our fears to really shed light on those things, those ways, those beliefs, those things that encourage those ways of showing up. And so fear, in essence, becomes this way shower And I know this is kind of a new concept, but it does. Fear becomes this way shower, highlighting those areas where forgetting has really taken a stronghold. And then this healing balm of remembering is needed. And Ernest Holmes, the founder of A Religious Science and Science of Mind, says that peace comes from the absence of fear, from a consciousness of trust, from a deep underlying faith in the absolute goodness and mercy, the final integrity of the universe in which we live, and of every cause to which we give our thought, our time, and our attention. All of that I say yes to. And I think that I would have also included in that, or maybe adapted, and I'm pretty sure Ernest wouldn't mind, because he's all about this open the top, this evolution of ideas. And so we know that the science of mind doesn't stop with Ernest Holmes, but it continues to evolve. And so I would add on to that peace also comes from the awareness of fear. Fear can often operate in this default mode. We're in it and we don't even realize it. And sometimes we find ourselves living in this default and we don't even realize that's where we're at. And in this, we find ourselves holding back in our lives, playing small and being paralyzed, and we don't even know why. But when we become aware of how it is showing up in our lives, of how this fear is impacting our thoughts and our decisions and our actions, when we see it for the neon sign that it is, hey, look here, and choose to lean into it, then it begins to create a little crack, a little space for truth to seep in. That truth of abundance, that truth of love, that truth of joy, that truth of peace, that truth of all things that are good and beautiful. That sustaining, that maintaining, that exhilarating nature of the universe. When we can remember that, even if for a moment, sometimes just a brief second in the day, if we can remember that, it can shift our whole perspective and relationship to fear. Marianne Williams says that your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure about you or around you. You're meant to shine as children do, and we are born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's just not in some of us. It is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So as we show up in our own authenticity, our own braveness, to lean into our own fear, we invite others to do the same. And when we do that, in this, we can feel and experience that ripple effect of remembering. Of remembering that infiltrates us to our very core, that clears the cluttered and often dusty spaces that fear can often leave. And it allows us and invites us into the openness, into the expansiveness, into the adventure, into the possibility that remembering brings. And so in closing, I'd like to leave you with these just wise and wonderful and powerful words of John O'Donohue. His words often speak to this idea of remembering. And I think these words in particular, just speak to this powerful action, this powerful activity of remembering, and how we can learn to live from this space. And I think they speak to the truth that is present in all of us, that truth that calls us to remember in the face of fear. And really, remembering becomes that ultimate fear buster. And so he says, and we'll let this be our Our prayer for today. There's a quiet light that shines in every heart. It draws no attention to itself, though it is always secretly there. It is what illuminates our mind to see beauty, our desire to seek possibility, and our hearts to love life. Without this subtle quickening, our days would be empty and wearisome, and no horizon would ever awaken our longing. Our passion for life is quietly sustained from somewhere in us that is wedded to the energy and excitement of life. This shy inner light is what enables us to recognize and receive our very presence here as blessing. We enter the world as strangers who all at once become heirs to a harvest of memory, spirit, and dream that has long preceded us and will now unfold, nourish, and sustain us. And so it is.